Everybody glad to be back in some level of real class? Well, I'm glad to have you all here. I'm going to take a quick picture real quick, so please look forward. Do not remove your masks. But just to kind of get let's see if I can be able to get something kind of. Thanks. So, a couple of things that I need to talk with you all about before we get into the today's stuff. So, one, we're going to have that annoying beep all morning, so just try to ignore it as best you can. I don't know what it's for, but it just has done that ever since I've been in this building, which has been about 3 years. So, apparently, it's nothing serious. So, there's that. As you all know, and you all came in through the correct door, that's how we're always going to come into the classroom. The seats that you are in right now are your seats for the rest of the semester. So make a mental note of where you're at, okay? So that's where you're going to be. When we get ready to leave class at 9 o'clock, okay, I will dismiss the class. I'll try to do it a couple of minutes early so that you have some time. But we do have a guest coming at 8:45 by Teams meeting that I'll be projecting for you. But we will dismiss the class from the back to the front, okay? So those of you in the back will go out the exit that's labeled back there and on your way out, and then it'll just be row by row by row. I'm not going to go along and dismiss each row. You all are old enough to know how to dismiss in an orderly fashion. So it's one of the things for COVID so that we don't all jam up at the same time at the door and in close contact. Can everybody see this okay? I mean, I know the lights are a little weird in here. I was playing with the lights, and this is about as good as I can do without completely turning off all the lights, and if I do that, I know everybody will be asleep really quickly, so we're going to avoid doing that. Now that we are in class, it is a heck of a lot easier for us to interact with one another. You don't have to worry about pushing the team's hand raised and me being able to see it. If you have anything that you want to say or add to any conversation, please just raise your hand, and I'll point you out, and you can chime in. So this week for our readings, I picked another CNEN Talks With, and this time it was with Anissa Ramirez. Tell me what you took from this particular reading. What was kind of interesting about this one? Uh-huh.
Because in our teaching, in our schooling, our teachers never really told stories that have like they relate to like our lessons. Sometimes they did, and thinking about it now, it really helped me get more engaged in the topic, and actually want to know more about it. So that's kind of interesting that's actually a thing that people do, and how much it's helpful, and also how all the accidental mistakes really help trying to figure out like things besides like what to send. They don't want to send it. I can't pronounce that.
That's okay.
But and like with figuring out how to make clear glass that's not just having it form it's like that's something that we're doing today. So I thought those couple of things was really cool.
Yeah, I think the takeaway for me was certainly two things. The first is the storytelling. I think you're absolutely correct about that. So being able to tell a good story to get people engaged in things, I think is very, very important. Each and every one of you are studying chemistry or biochemistry as a degree choice right now. And not each and every one of you will become practicing chemists or biochemists. But you will be able to take that information on and tell good stories about things to encourage other people to study our discipline moving forward. So being a good storyteller, I think, is a real positive thing that I took from the reading. So, scientists don't go into the laboratory and just think of things off the top of their head. They usually are faced with a problem. There's some story behind it, right? There's some problem they're trying to solve. There's a story to it. And knowing that sometimes, I think, puts things in better perspective, and it puts things in a different light than you might think of. What else do you take from this? Anybody else? Yeah.
I kind of like the idea that she talked about like science and a bunch of inventions and discoveries in science weren't from like these people who had all these degrees and PhDs. It was just normal, run-of-the-mill people, and trying to help people realize that like you don't have to be a genius necessarily to enjoy science and trying to get science out to the more general public.
No, that's right. Yeah, I mean, the myth of the genius is one that quite frequently gets inserted in science, but in fact, in reality, a lot of times, very important discoveries, very important observations have occurred by fairly regular individuals that ended up becoming famous because of, a discovery or whatever. But nonetheless, you don't have to be a genius to do this type of work. That's absolutely correct. One of the things that I took from this, too, that I think is very, very powerful, this is an example of an alternative career path, right? I mean, for all practical purposes, other than the places that she went for her education were clearly different than where I went for my education, but we pretty much so had the same kind of career path. I mean, get a bachelor's degree, you get some sort of graduate degree. She went off and worked at Yale for a while, and Bell Labs, right? I didn't go off and work at Bell Labs, but I did go, I'm working at a university, right? And then she took a detour, and now she's a writer, Nothing in her graduate training prepared her to write books and tell stories, right? It was all about science and keeping notebooks and doing careful experiments and all that, but she had a knack for storytelling and obviously liked to do that and changed her career path. That's one of the things that I want you to take from this, is that you can go down one career path and then switch over with a degree in chemistry or material science, whatever the case may be. She would, I think, consider herself more of a material scientist. But there are many what we call alternative career paths that people end up going down. That your training as a chemist or biochemist or scientist in general can prepare you well for, and you just have to look for the right opportunities. Okay, so I find that quite amazing. Anytime somebody goes from kind of that area, hard science, facts only, to all of a sudden being something like a storyteller, and so I find that very, very interesting, and I think. You should think about that. I mean, there are a number of things that you're going to be able to do with your education that your advisor probably doesn't really even know are going to be possible when you all become ready to go out into the job market. The job market's changing so much. I mean, we don't even know how the job market is going to be changing as a result of COVID yet, right? But you all are going to be leaving the university with a skill set that you'll be able to apply to a variety of new jobs that don't even exist yet, and I find that exciting. Okay, there are going to be opportunities that are going to come your way because you have a STEM education and a degree that, and it's going to be up to you to take advantage of those opportunities, obviously, but nonetheless, they're going to be there. There's another individual who also is quite amazing. His name was Carl Gerasi. He died a few years ago. Some argued he probably should have won a Nobel Prize, but he didn't. He was a faculty member at Stanford. He got started off in industry. He is considered the father of the sexual revolution because his research led to the birth control pill way back in the day. And so he had that industrial experience where he invented basically contraception. And then he ended up going to Stanford and being a synthetic chemist, where he became famous as a scholar. And then he kind of got bored with it all, and he started an artist commune somewhere in California. And he wrote plays, and he wrote poetry, and he wrote all kinds of stuff. Most of the stuff that I read, actually, I found quite boring. But he actually had this third career where he took a total different direction and became kind of an artist. But I find it interesting that he had this wandering career path and was able to find success in all of those areas. So, just because you're studying chemistry, just because you're studying the sciences, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be wearing a white lab coat, sitting in front of a bench doing that kind of work all day. That's the kind of work that I get excited about, but that's not the kind of work that everybody else gets excited about. They like to tell stories, and they like to write poems and plays and that kind of stuff. I think the reason I found his plays kind of dull and boring was because they were all about chemistry graduate students and professors that were, I think, a little not true, in my opinion. But anyway, an example of an individual who kind of took a different career path, and that's one of the things that I wanted you all to get out of this reading. Is there anything else before we move on? No? Okay. Well, we also had a reading on so-called making the leap. I'm not going to go through this one a whole lot, other than to say, if you pick up any scientific magazine or journal today, there is all kinds of stuff about COVID-19, and for obvious reasons. And really what I wanted you to get from this is that there are chemists out there, chemists, biochemists, biologists, all working together to try to figure out what we can do about things like COVID, right? There are people out there right now that are looking in animals to try to identify what the next viral hop is going to be so that we can be ahead of that curve. Okay? I find it amazing that they're out there doing this, trying to identify these things. And so when you hear scientists talk about the next pandemic outbreak, they're basing this on science. This is not going to be the only pandemic we ever have. We've had pandemics before. You've lived through pandemics before. They just haven't been as serious as what we've experienced with COVID-19. And so hopefully the next one we can get a little further ahead of it and maybe do a little better job. But scientists are contributing to that. It was a long read, of course. People are looking at the structures of various proteins and other things to try to figure out how we can develop cures, how we can do better testing. All of those types of things are heavily engaged in by chemists. So we're not going to talk a whole lot about that. You all can read that one on your own. And then I had a video on the Feynman technique, which we're not going to go over today as well, but that will be part of your, I believe that's part of your notebook reflection for tomorrow. So what I wanted to spend a good amount of time on was actually talking about our semester by semester guides again. So I want to get that wrapped up and finished so that you all can go and polish those up really, really nicely. How many of you have all started on your personalized semester by semester guide? Okay, so a good number of you. Some of you haven't yet, and that's fine. You got plenty of time. Having said that, it's not as easy an assignment as you all think it is. And I will just give you a word of caution. Last year when people turned it in, it was the first year that we had done this, I turned it back and told everybody they had to redo it. There's a number of areas where people were missing the point, okay? And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that today. But it's very, very important that you have more than just your classes in a semester. You have to think about your curriculum holistically, right? That's the important thing about any curriculum. It's a holistic thing. It's not about your freshman year, your sophomore year, your junior year, your senior year. It's about all of that together when you graduate and what you take away. That's what I want you to get out of the personalized semester by semester guide. I want you to understand the why it is structured the way that it is. I want you to understand the why that you have to take certain classes before you take other classes. That's what you need to get out of this. And it's very, very important, especially in something like chemistry, where we only offer some of the courses once a year. And those are prerequisites to another course. So if you miss that particular course in your scheduling, you've just extended your stay by an entire 12 months, unfortunately. So it's very, very important that you and your advisor work very carefully to have your semester by semesters all figured out well in advance. So just to refresh, Last time we talked about what you're going to fill out. You're going to use this template. You're going to download it. You don't have to replicate this on your own. Just download the template and erase all the junk information that I put up there and fill in your stuff. You're going to have your name. You're going to have your ID. You're going to have your degree plan. You're either going to be an ACS certified chemistry emphasis or you're going to be a biochemistry emphasis or a licensure emphasis. But I don't think anybody picked licensure when we were talking previously. Okay? It's very important to note that we do not have a biochemistry major. We have a biochemistry emphasis. You will get a chemistry degree with a biochemistry emphasis. Okay? It's 1 degree. Everybody will get a chemistry degree, but those that are studying the biochemistry emphasis will study more biology and have some different electives. Okay? But we're all in the same discipline of chemistry. Biochemistry is a subdiscipline of chemistry. Okay? Can anybody name the 5 subdisciplines of chemistry? There's organic, there's analytical, there's physical, there's inorganic, and there's biochemistry. And some would argue that there's material science. But at this institution, we don't consider it that way because we actually have an entire polymer science program that's dedicated to materials. Okay? And so we consider that to be separate, even though there's an awful lot of overlap in understanding between the chemists and the material scientists. You're going to mark whether or not you are in honors college. If you were to mark yes there, you know in your semester by semester guide you're going to have to include your honors form, your honors this, your honors that, all the things that you have to do. And I will expect to see those. If you put that you have a minor, obviously you're going to have to include your minor requirements in your personalized semester by semester guide. You're going to have to go to the minor and figure out where things are and put those in the appropriate place. You're going to list who your advisor is. You're going to list your ACT math score. The reason for that is because of your math placements based on that. You're going to mention whether or not you have any AP credits or dual enrollment and whether or not you're a member of a fraternity or sorority. Okay? I want, when you go to talk to your advisor, for them to be able to look at that and understand the demands on your time. Each thing that I have listed up there is a demand on your time. Your minor is a demand on your time, right? Honors college is a demand on your time. If you're a member of a fraternity or sorority, that is a demand on your time. And all of that is going to have to be taken into account as you build your semester by semester guide. Doesn't matter how ambitious you are, how rich you are, or whatever, there is still only 24 hours in a day for each and every one of us. Come on in. Right? And so we've got to deal with that. Right? And so your advisor needs to know this information to help you do that. You will list your high school AP credits and you'll list your dual enrollments as well. And this will all be done on this 1 page. Okay? It needs to be a 1-pager. You will also talk about your career plans in their relation to chemistry, biochemistry. Obviously, if you want to go and work in the chemical industry, the direct connection is very, very clear. If you want to go to medical school, you're going to have to make it clear why you chose chemistry or biochemistry. If you want to go to graduate school and something else other than chemistry, you're going to have to figure it out, okay? And so I expect this to be a substantial bit of writing, not a sentence, okay? Doesn't have to be, half a page or anything, but it needs to be substantial. You will then, on another page, you will have your fall. Now it says 2019, you'll change that to 2020, right? Now this is if you're freshmen. I know some of you are sophomores, and I think we have a junior or two in here. You may have to go. You may have to go back into time on this. So for you, this might be fall of 19. Okay. But for freshmen, true freshmen that are in here right now, you would start at the fall of 2020. This would be your current semester. You're going to list the classes that you're in. You're going to add up the total credits, right? You're going to list the prefix, the course number. You're going to give the title of the course. You're going to give the credit hours. And you're going to tell me what this course is a prerequisite to in your curriculum. This is where people quite frequently mess up. You're going to have to look at your entire curriculum, all of your classes in the bulletin, and figure out what is a prerequisite to what. Okay? Now I know that based on the ACT math score that I showed there, I would be starting out in college algebra. And I need college algebra so I can get into trig, which is my math 103. I'm going to need my trig so that I can get into calculus 1. I'm going to need calculus 1 so I can get into calculus 2. I'm going to need calculus 1 and 2 so that I can get into physical chemistry. I'm going to need calculus 1 so that I can get into physics 201 if I'm wanting to do the calculus-based physics route, right? Because you can choose either the trig-based physics or the calculus-based physics. We allow you to choose which one you do. Why would you want to do one over the other, right? You need to think about that. Well, hey, I want to go to medical school. Take the trig. It's 1 hour less. It'll get you where you need to be, and it's just fine. I want to go to graduate school and become a chemical engineer. You better take the physics-based or the calculus-based physics. Engineers need that extra level of rigor in their physics training. Okay? So you need to think about those types of things, right? Obviously, if you're in chemistry 106, that's a prerequisite to 107, so on and so forth. Okay? If you're in English 101, right, it's a prerequisite to English 102. English 101 and English 102 are a prerequisite to your writing intensive course that you'll take. They are also a prerequisite to your capstone course that you will have to take. So you've got to make all of those connections. So things that you're doing right now as a freshman are going to be very important to things that you need to accomplish when you're a senior. It's all connected. Okay? I think most students understand that classes are blocks. They're building blocks. But the curriculum is those building blocks plus the extra stuff that you do that cements it all together. That's your curriculum. It's not just the courses that you take. Okay? And so this would be the fall of 2020, the current semester. You're going to write a paragraph on why you need these courses at this time. Okay? You're going to write something out. And then you're going to talk about your time management. This is going to be the toughest part for you all. This is where I really scrutinize what you have done. If everything else is correct, I really look at this really hard. I've had students that have said things like, I'm taking 19 hours and I'm working a full-time job and no problems. I know that's not possible. There's only 24 hours in a day. When I went to college, I worked a 3/4 time job and took 14, 15 hours and it almost killed me. But I had to do it. It's what I had to do to get through college. Okay? But had I had better time management, it would have been a lot better for me, right? So I want you to think an awful lot about this time management piece. Okay? Time management does not mean about occupying all of your time with your schoolwork, however. You need to allow some time for yourself, but you need to think about it and you need to plan it out. Okay? So you'll talk about your time management here. And if you have a part-time job, this is a great place for you to mention that and how you're going to put all this together. How much time does it take to complete, let's just say, a 3-hour class on average a week? A 3-credit-hour class. How much time should you all be devoting as students to that class?
In my syllabus for one of my other classes, it said you need 3 hours outside of class per credit hour. So for a 3-hour class, you need about 12 hours a week.
Okay. I would say that's probably a little high, but it actually is fairly close. I mean, it depends on the class. Not all 3-hour classes are the same, right? Or let's just take this 1-hour class. This 1-hour class does not put the time demands on you that a 1-hour class in calculus would put on you, right?
I was going to say 9 to 12 hours.
Okay. The rule of thumb that I have is that for every hour you're sitting in class or on Zoom, you need to spend about 2 hours of outside study time on average. Now, your physics classes, your biology classes, your chemistry classes, a little more. Some of your humanities classes, although don't tell my humanities colleagues this, maybe a little less. A little. And then it all depends on what you're quote-unquote good at, right? Now, you can be good at anything. Depends on how much time you want to put into it. But some of us have more of a natural aptitude for one type of subject over another. Some of you are probably big history buffs and have, a history class is a breeze to you. Others, it may be, hey, I did a lot of art, and art's just going to be a breeze for me. But you've got to figure what that is out, and that's part of your time management. You got to think about your courses. Okay? Any questions about that? Okay. You will do the same thing for the upcoming spring semester. You'll list your courses. Notice it's blank here. I only gave you one semester of an example. You'll do exactly the same thing here. And you will list your prerequisites. You will do this for each and every semester that you plan to be here at the institution. So if you plan to be here for 5 years because you're doing a double major, or you're doing a major and a pretty intense minor, whatever the case is, you would need to have 10 semesters, right? As opposed to 8. And then I also have an example of a summer semester. Okay? Are summers required for your curriculum here? They are not. Some of your friends are in programs that have required summer semesters. Chemistry, biochemistry is not one of those. Your summertime, however, is an excellent opportunity for you to do things like internships, research experiences for undergraduate programs across the nation, assuming we get those back after COVID, study abroad opportunities, right? We had the study abroad office come and talk to us a couple of weeks ago. If you're thinking about studying abroad in one of the summer programs, you need to put that in there. You need to plan that out. I highly encourage it. I think it's a great opportunity. My daughter spent 2 months in China one summer when she was in college. Best experience of her life, I think she would say. She didn't study any chemistry. She was a chemistry major. She didn't study any chemistry that summer, but she went and she did Chinese as her foreign language. She had a foreign language requirement where she went to school. We don't have that. So she spent her summer in China learning Chinese as part of her foreign language requirement. You'll notice at the top of the summer, I have some little statements there. Let me just read these out to you. Students who plan to complete courses at another institution must receive written permission to do so. Please discuss this with your advisor prior to enrolling in any course at another institution. USM is under no obligation to apply credits completed at another institution without prior written permission. All right. Let's give you an example. You've gone through your fall, you've gone through your spring, and you're going to go home for the summer, and at home, a mile or two away is a community college, right? Here in Mississippi, there's a community college just about in every county, it seems like, right? So you're thinking, I'm going to go to the community college, and I'm going to complete one of my maths. I'm going to get my last math out of the way. That'll put me on track to take PChem in the fall, and I'll be ready to go, and I'll be on good track. Not a bad plan. However, you need to talk to your advisor about that, and you need to get it in writing that we will accept it. The reason is because not all classes at all institutions are equivalent. It may say Calculus 3 at that institution. And when your advisor reads the description of what they cover in Calculus 3 there, we find out that all that really is our Calculus 2. You need to know that before you go, pay the money, take the class, and bring it back, and the advisor goes, you really haven't had Calculus 3. Okay? Mac?
Well, you've probably heard about this, but I took a course through Cary this past summer, which it was the second semester of freshman chemistry, but we never did a written permission or anything like that. Like, is it a little bit different if it's like before you start your freshman year?
That is different. So when you came in with those dual enrolled credits, or whatever the case was, we are accepting that as transfer credit as part of your admission process. But now that you're here, your advisor needs to work on that, with you on that, to make sure that they are going to transfer. Now, I don't say this to scare you. 99% of the time it will transfer, especially if it's from a university or college community college here in Mississippi. We've worked with each other to figure that out. Okay? But you need to make sure it's there to protect you. Okay? Some of you may live in Alabama and you're thinking, I'm going to go back home to Alabama for the summer, and I'm going to go to whatever community college in Alabama. I'm going to take that course. I'm going to transfer it back. We're under no obligation to accept that course. Even if the admissions folks say we'll post credit for it, we are not obligated to allow that to apply to the major. Okay? Now, your advisor will work with you to try to make it work, but wouldn't it be better to do that before you went and spent the money than after the fact? Wouldn't you much rather know, hey, if I get a C or better in this, they're going to let this count to my degree, right, before you go off and do it. So that's why I have that there. It's very, very important for you all to remember. When you're thinking about summer courses, if you're thinking about USM summer courses, you're good. Study abroad through USM, you're good. Courses at another institution, talk to your advisor. Okay? Any questions about any of that? Yes, sir.
So, if like our classes have more than one prerequisite, like we would put both of those, and like how many there in that one?
Yep, however many prerequisites, and we're going to pull up the bulletin here in just a moment. We're going to look at some examples. But yes, you will have courses that are prerequisites potentially to multiple things. So for example, Cal 1 is a prerequisite to both Physics 201, if that's the route you're taking, as well as Cal 2, right? And so you would have to list both of those. Did I see another, Mac?
So for instance, for like chemistry 106, will we have to like write down prerequisite for and then list all the other chemistry courses we need to take in?
No, so for Chemistry 106 is a prerequisite to Chemistry 107, and 107 only. 107 is then a prerequisite to Organic 1, and you would have to list that when you list it. And so you'll be able to see these threads, what we call these curricular threads that run throughout our curriculum.
You use this just an example whenever you're saying why this degree, why I'm taking this degree. You said, I want you to make a connection on why biochemistry for medical school.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm taking biochemistry because biochemistry is like a commonly used major for medical students. But so would I just say that?
You need to go a little deeper than that. Why did you choose biochem? I mean, to go to medical school, you can major in anything. You could be an art major as long as you take the prerequisite courses for medical school. Yeah, why did you choose it? Why did you choose to go down that path when so many other paths are open to you? And there's a reason for it, probably for you, right?
So we had to do a fall, spring semester for freshman year, sophomore year, junior, and senior year.
You have to do every semester that you plan on being here. So freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. If you're going to be here a fifth year, you need to list a fifth year, right? But you're going to be here for at least the fall and the spring of every semester, we hope, right? You might be in a summer, although it's not required. But I would highly recommend you consider summer to stay on track, depending on where you're at in your math sequence typically. Okay? So typically people will start their physical chemistry, their P-Chem sequence as we call it, the beginning of their junior year. But if you start with college algebra, which there's nothing wrong with starting with college algebra, but it gets really tight. So you might want to take a math course in the summer so that you can be on track to get through Cal 2 in time, okay? Just depends on where your starting point is. Any other questions? Okay. How am I going to grade this? Number one, I'm going to look for completeness. Did you list every required course in our curriculum? Did you list it in a position that makes sense? I will post in some, we have some rough rotation guides. I will upload those that'll let you know kind of when courses are offered. I'll post that this afternoon. Okay. I'm going to look at your prerequisites. In other words, did you list all the correct, now this course is a prerequisite to these courses. I'm going to look at that. And then I'm going to look at your time management. Okay? If you have all of that and it's correct, you're going to get full credit. Okay? I might make some comments about your time management. I might say something like, I think this is an ambitious semester. You might want to think about scaling back. Or I might say, this is kind of light. You need to kind of maybe beef it up if you're going to have an opportunity to get done in 4 years, right? I'll make those types of comments. But I'm not going to look at it and see whether or not it's an ideal schedule for you as an individual. Okay? That is what you and your advisor are going to sit and discuss. And when you take this to your advisement session and you sit down with your advisor over Zoom or Teams, right? You all are going to have some real conversations about where things are placed and whether or not it makes sense for you as an individual. You may be working a 35-hour-a-week job, and it just may not be feasible for you to have a semester that's 16 hours with PChem, Cal 3, and all of this stuff. And so you and your advisor will sit and work, and, well, maybe if you took this in the summer, maybe this could lighten that load on that particular semester. Okay? I'm not going to look at those details. I'm not your advisor. Okay? And that's what they're going to do for you or with you. Everybody clear on what I'm looking for? You're going to put this together. You're going to upload it by the due date, which I believe is September. Anybody remember? 23rd. Okay. So you've got a little bit of time to finish it out. I promise you, this is something that you cannot do the night before and get it right. It takes a little bit of time. Okay? Now, where are you going to go to, Mac?
Just one more question.
Sure.
So, would it be fine if you had like one semester that was like 14 credit hours, but if they added up to be like on average 15, would you still get the scholarship?
No, that's a very good question. The way that we have our scholarshiping set up for at this institution is that you have to it's on a per semester basis.
So at least 15.
So at least 15 to keep your scholarship, yeah. So what you might find yourself doing, right, you may have a very rigorous semester where you're taking, let's just say, organic 2 in a lab and physics in a lab. That's you. And you may be taking a polymer science, and you get to, let's say, 14 hours. It's probably not wise for you to go out and pick another 3-hour course, right? That would take you over 15. That's really going to be a huge demand on your time. So probably what you're going to be doing is looking for a 1-hour activities course that'll get you to 15 and actually give you a little decompression time. You may take a yoga course. You may take a fitness walking course. You may take something in weightlifting. They've got a series of these 1-hour activities courses that we recommend students consider in situations like that. They are not filler courses, but they are courses that are going to give you a skill. They're going to contribute to your overall health. They're not going to be a huge time suck for you, and it's going to give you an opportunity every week to kind of decompress from your normal academic workload. And I find them to be quite helpful and beneficial in that regard. Okay? So you might find yourself in situations where you need that extra hour. We highly recommend those types of courses. All right, so we went to the bulletin last time a little bit, right? Where do we find what we're looking for? We need to go to the 2020-2021 bulletin. If you are a sophomore or a junior and you were here prior, you would go to whatever bulletin you are under. You can find that in your student center in your SOAR account. But I'm assuming this is all for true freshmen. You would go to the... Now, where do we go from there? We go to the College of Arts and Sciences, right? Schools and programs. And what school are we in? That's right, we're in the School of Mathematics and Natural Sciences. And let's just pick on, I think most of your biochemistry, we'll just pick on biochem. Okay? When you're there, you need to read kind of what I call the preamble. Okay? You're going to find out that our biochemistry emphasis is actually accredited by ASBMB. I always have trouble rolling those off my tongue. So you're in an accredited program, just like if you're in the ACS certified chemistry program, you're in an accredited or certified program. So you know that the curriculum you're getting is good. And you're going to look at your degree requirements. You can also look at the semester guide. The semester guide is where you're going to get an idea of where courses are typically offered. Okay? So when you look in that semester guide, you'll see that PChem 1, 461, is always in the fall on the semester guide. That means it's only offered in the fall, right? And so you'll be able to figure that out. I'll also upload, like I said, some rotations for some of our electives so that you understand where those typically come in. But you're going to want to look at that BS degree requirements, right? You know you're going to need 124 hours to complete this degree. You've got all of your general ed requirements that are listed here. Many of your general ed requirements double count for you, right? So when you complete Chemistry 106, right, you've completed a gen ed requirement. And when you complete one of the physics courses or one of the biology courses that are listed there, you've completed the other gen ed requirement. You're going to have humanities, right? You're going to have English and history and one of the other courses. I highly recommend philosophy. You're going to have an aesthetic values course. You're going to have 6 hours in social and behavioral science. If you are pre-med, it is very, very important for you to list for your 6 hours of social and behavioral sciences as what two courses? Psych and Soc. You really need those courses. They're going to satisfy a medical school requirement for you. They're going to satisfy our university general education requirement for you. Okay? So you can double count that in a way. Okay? Now, from a viewpoint of a chemistry advisor, if you ended up taking anthropology and concepts of wellness, you have satisfied our GEC. You're good. As far as we're concerned, as far as a major, you're good to go. But you ain't good to go as far as being a pre-med. Okay? So you need to keep that in mind. Who is our pre-professional advisor at the institution? Destiny is probably your advisor, but our pre-professional advisor is actually Dr. Jennifer Reagan. Okay? She is not listed as a formal advisor to you, but she's the one that oversees all of those things that you need to do if you're thinking about going to med school, law school, dental school, pharmacy school, optometry school, PT, all of those things. And you need to get in touch with her as quickly as you can and sit down and have a conversation with her about your career goals so that she can help you with all the other things that you need to know before you go to your professional education. Okay? Your DEG, these are all the required courses for the program. Notice they are all hyperlinked. When you click on them, so let's click on General Chemistry 107, it's going to pop up and it's going to tell us what the prerequisite to 107 is. This is how you're going to determine your prerequisites. You have to look at your courses moving forward. Okay? So you're going to go through all of these courses and you're going to see what is a prerequisite to that course. And so since we see here that 106 is a prerequisite to 107, you're going to know to go back to 106 and list 107 as what it's a prerequisite to. Okay? And you're going to put all of that together. It's a great place to start, but many of you will not be able to follow it ideally because of your math placements or your dual credits. Some of you have a lot of dual credit, and you will not start off with an English one and this, that, and the other, and it just kind of gets out of whack real quickly. It gives you a great idea, great starting point. Yep. Okay, I'm going to stop all of that for right now, and I'm going to get us into our online teams. Christy?
Hey, how are you? Can you
Can't
hear me
hear you.
okay?
Let me see if I can do.
Let me turn up my volume.
Let's see here. My sound. Okay, can you try to speak?
Yes, hello. No.
Still can't hear you. Do you want to try, Christy, to invite me to a Teams meeting real quick? I mean, you can call me on Teams and we can just maybe try it that way.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, let's try that.
Okay.
So just call me on Teams and I'll answer. I hope. Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
I can't hear you though.
Oh. Hmm. Is your audio, well,
Do you want to postpone and maybe come back next week?
I can.
Will that be okay?
Yes.
Okay.
let me see.
I'll contact you and we'll arrange, okay?
Okay.
All right, sorry.
That's fine.
Well, so much for technology. So the good news is you guys are going to get done a little early today. So any questions about the personalized semester by semester guide before we dismiss? Because I'm not going to talk about it again. Yes, ma'am. No. No, if you're not planning on doing summer classes, you do not have to include a summer semester. That's only if you're going to include, you know, if you're planning on taking a class. But I expect to see, you know, fall and a spring for every semester.
Also, for some of the things that, you know, it has like summer, some year, could you also put down if you plan on doing some internship or something this summer on the second classes, or
You
is that
can.
only if you plan to?
Yeah, so if you're doing an internship for credit, absolutely you would list it. If you're going to do something that is academically related but not for credit, it would be okay to list it. But if you're going to go get a job, you know, at home, doing something that is, you know, nothing at all related with your degree, I wouldn't bother listing it. So if you're going to go and work at a local, let's say, environmental testing laboratory, well, that's connected to chemistry. I would list that. That's kind of an internship, whether it's for credit or not.
If you plan on working on a lab, or, I don't know if you call it training or not, or on campus, but,
I would do it.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So anything that you're going to do that can,
How is it, I guess I don't know how much depends on,
well, depends on who you're doing that with. So typically most faculty that I'm familiar with want students in the lab at least 10 hours a week. So usually that's kind of what I consider to be the demand. If you're doing it for credit, they typically ask you to do 10 hours a week. If they're paying you, whatever, and they want you to be in the lab working 20 hours a week, so they're going to pay you, up to that legal limit that they can. No?
For a class like versus biochemistry, could you actually take the class in a different semester from the lab? Because I noticed it doesn't require that you take the lab with you, but could you take a different semester just the lab, a different semester just to add one credit hour?
You can. You can. Biochemistry, if you do the 421 laboratory, is actually a 2 credit hour lab, and it meets a lot. If you do the 420, it's a 1 hour lab. So you just have to look and see what the prerequisite listing is, or if it says co-requisite. If it says co-requisite, that means you have to take them at the same time. So Chemistry 107 and 107L are co-requisites. Now we've bent the rules on that because of COVID a little bit, but it's still a co-requisite. Okay.
What says the 420, the principles of biochemistry?
That's right. It's the principles. Yeah, principles, and you can take it at a different time. I'd have to look on the 421 to make sure, but I think that one may be prereq or co-req. All right, so let's go ahead and dismiss class. Starting at the back of the room, go ahead and single file. If you want to grab a hand sanitizer, feel free. But just please don't congregate, and I'll see you all next week.